I'm Helena Warrenco. I'm the medical representative on the executive board at OCAMPR. Thanks for being with us this morning. It's been a great conference. I hope you have found the same. This morning we have Joel Klepac, who is a counselor at Center College Counseling Services in Danville, Kentucky. He's a member of St. Andrew Antiochian Orthodox Church in Lexington. And come on in. And he'll speak on seeing God's image in our enemy. Thank you.
Well, I'm flattered that you all showed up to my session. There's more people in here than I expected. I hope you're not terribly disappointed. So the primary thing I want to do today is actually offer you a way to do a role play with people to help work on their own perceptions of someone who they're really struggling with. Okay? So you can do it with yourself or for other people, but I want for you to have sort of an experience of this so that you could take it back and you could do it in your own clinical setting. After I saw this done, I was like, wow, I need to do this. Okay? And I'm excited to share this with you all. I would say even from the beginning, as I'm going to give about 10-15 minutes of kind of setup before we get into the role play, but I'm going to really need a few of you to maybe be willing to give me a scenario that you might be willing to work with in front of everybody, which I know is a big ask in 10 minutes for you to trust me. I do appreciate that we're part of a conference, and I do feel a lot of acceptance and love and care within this community. So I do feel like we can maybe have the safety among us to do something that's a little bit more vulnerable. Okay. So as I talk, I want you to think about, are there scenarios that you might be willing to work with? Okay. So I've sent some handouts around, and on the top of this one, actually it's like that with a little bunch of bullet points. There are 3 quotes there, and I wonder if I could get 3 people to read those quotes to just start us out. And maybe if you wouldn't even mind just standing up and reading it, just for fun. Okay, we got one here. Maybe you can do the second one. Can somebody do the third one? You do the third. Thank you so much. Okay.
All right. Love your enemies, do good to them, and lend to them, expecting nothing in return. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, because He is kind even to ungrateful and evil people. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful.
Thank you.
For if, while we were enemies, we were reconciled to God through the death of His Son, how much more, having been reconciled, will we be saved by His life?
As it is not to be imagined that the fornicator and the blasphemer can partake of the sacred table, so it is impossible that he who has an enemy and bears malice can enjoy the Holy Communion. I forewarn and testify and proclaim this with a voice that all may hear. Let no one who hath an enemy draw near the sacred table or receive the Lord's body. Let no one who draws near have an enemy.
Thank you. I was moved by the talk this morning. I'm sure many of you were. And I think that one of the things the talk brought out again is that violence is about isolation, and often we're insulated from our enemies, and this distance we have from maybe the inner city or from people that we have as enemies, that distance also contributes to it. One of the 2 main contributors to violence is also a sense of scarcity. I feel like that came out a whole lot. So isolation and scarcity, those are our 2 biggest issues with violence. Because when we get close enough to see the humanity of the other person, it's really hard to do violence to them. What I want to share with you comes out of something called nonviolent communication. And I want to just share just very little bit about that. But basically, in nonviolent communication, the understanding of violence is anything that diminishes the humanity of the other. Anything that diminishes the humanity of the other. And one of the things we see is that even linguistically, by putting people in good and bad categories, and this came out beautifully in that last talk, only bad people shoot other people, is just not true. Hurt people, So in order to perpetuate violence, and maybe it's the mass incarceration that's part of the violence, that we're diminishing the humanity, that this is a whole person that was involved in this shooting. How do we minister to the whole person, right? And so this process really is a way to help us get in touch with the humanity of the other person, okay? And so it's really about how do I dissolve or remove this image that I have in my mind, in my heart, about the other person, okay? So I've done this in one-on-one counseling sessions before with clients that might be struggling with family members or friends or some kind of relationship where they're upset with them, okay? Or they have judgments of them. Nonviolent communication, in some ways, is about exiting the game of who's right. So if we're just at the level of thoughts and trying to just figure out who's right and who's wrong, we will inevitably perpetuate violence, okay? Because the people that are wrong are bad, people that are bad should be punished. Punishment leads to violence, okay? So it's the alternative to focusing on the game of who's right is to focus on what we call universal human needs. And I've sent out another handout here, and it's a wheel of universal human needs. And it's identical to basic human values, okay? But what we find is, I believe that this is another facet of the image of God within people. Nonviolent communication says that every thought, every word, every behavior is an expression of these universal human needs. I think this goes right along with St. Gregory talks about desire, even desire for, desire related to the passions. Underneath that desire is a desire for God. And that came out so beautifully in the theological plenary. Underneath that desire, even the evil desires, underneath that is a desire for God. And this is another translation of that, I believe. Underneath everything we think and do, we're really seeking to get one of these universal human needs met. And what happens is when we can connect with that for ourselves or for others, all of a sudden we're transformed and we can see the humanity. Carl Rogers said that the one thing that unifies all human beings is that we all share 7 basic emotions. Okay, 7 basic feelings. And if everybody on the planet has experienced some level of anger, some level of sadness, some level of anxiety. So feelings connect us to our common humanity, and feelings are just indicators of universal human needs. They help point us to human needs. This Hari, I don't know his last name, guy who did some TED Talks on why are we depressed and anxious, says depression and anxiety are just signals of unmet needs. Okay? Signals of unmet needs. So in nonviolent communication, the whole work is to translate whatever other people are doing, whatever I'm doing, into human needs, and that's what connects us all. Okay? I want to just tell a quick story. I was doing a little bit of work on, I was doing a workshop on this stuff, and so I was, I wrote about this in last year when I presented a paper, but I was working with some struggle with, as I was a counseling student, I'd come home to my wife and tell her all the new jargon of the latest thing I was super excited about. And somehow she wasn't quite as excited about it as I was. I still don't understand that, you know. And as I did some work on it, I mean, I noticed it kind of bothered me that she wasn't as excited about it as I was, you know. So I did some of this work trying to understand what are my needs that were feeling threatened, what might have been going on for her, and pretty quick I got to this understanding that I think what was going on for her is that she has a real need for authenticity. So when I bring this artificial sounding language into our conversation, it doesn't feel authentic. And then I was like, wait a minute. Authenticity is what made me fall in love with her. Right? And so a couple weeks later, we had a date, and I asked her a question. I said, what's alive for you? Which is a very sort of jargony, nonviolent communication question. And she laughed. And I was holding on to this universal human need that she had for authenticity. And so instead of reacting and walling up to her, it's like, oh, this is her authenticity. And then we made some jokes about the question and made up 10 more ridiculous sounding questions. And then we had a beautiful, deep, connecting conversation. Okay. So this is what this kind of process can do for us. Instead of seeing somebody who's wrong, we see somebody who's trying to get a need met. Okay. Let's see. All right. So here's the big ask today. What I'd like to do is go through a process, and you actually have on the back side of that sheet, you actually have the basic steps of the process. I want you to be able to take it home and actually be able to use it if you'd like to, feel like it's appropriate. So right now, I wonder if you could begin to think about, as I speak about enemy images, I wonder if there are any people that come up for you. And it really should be somebody that you have a personal connection to, not just sort of somebody who's in the news that you get upset about, but somebody that is all right, let's deactivate the political brain. Go back. Okay. Yeah, so somebody who's in your life in some way, somebody who you connect with, maybe it's in your church, maybe it's in your work, that, you know, when you think about them, you get that, you know what I'm talking about? So I want to give you have a question?
Oh, I'm going to wait till your exit point. I just, you do a good job with the feelings and kind of staging the human needs, but kind of coming in, doing counseling and knowing that most of the time the enemy is, the spouse, the family member, stuff like that. Was there, if I kind of think of categories, enemy is a very large word. You just talked about whether it's Pelosi or Trump, right? We've already talked about the politics. But for you, for us today, with this enemy idea, are you able to kind of put it into, how we are vulnerable to sort of feeling like we've become either victimized or we now have an enemy? Is it kind of does it fall in a few compartments, I guess? That's all.
Yeah.
And it may not be necessary for anybody else. I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, so in order to kind of demonstrate a process, I want to do it in a way that is a little bit less intense. This kind of thing has been done in, negotiating between Palestinians and Israelis in communities where they had violence the night before. So there's about 500 certified trainers around the world. I'm not one of them. You have to actually have 50 days worth of training and supervision, all this stuff. Okay. So I'm not sure if I'm getting at that, but we can practice this at any level. It can be somebody who mildly irritates us, or it could be somebody who's physically threatening. Now, I would say I would probably be cautious about doing this with somebody who is in an abusive relationship. And what does it mean for them if they were to sort of lower some of their safety, lower some of their walls with someone? So we got to make sure that someone is still feeling safe. I don't want them to just go back into the relationship like, okay, I get you're needing safety, and that's why you're hitting me. right? We want people to be safe. Okay. So you have to kind of gauge that clinically if you're working with somebody in this. That's helpful. Okay, so what I would ask you is if you could think of somebody, and what I'm going to do is I'll ask if maybe 3 of you would be willing to offer like a 30-second version of the situation or the person that you want to deal with, and then I'll pick one of them that seem like it'll work the best for my purposes. And then we'll go through a 3-step role play, and you don't have to know anything or do anything special. The first phase, you'll be yourself, talking to me as if I'm your person, but I'm your person who has done some incredible empathy training and knows how to respond empathically to you. Okay? And then we're going to switch roles, and then you'll be the person you're struggling with, and I'll be you, and you get to speak for them, and then we'll switch back and be that person and get an empathy. Okay. Any questions about the process and what you're being asked to think of? Okay. Do I have 3 people who would be willing to put yourself out there? Again, Ancient Faith is recording stuff, but I have talked to them, and they are not going to put it on unless we say, yes, it's okay. So that's going to also be up to the person who is volunteering to do this. If you don't feel comfortable with somebody hearing this or somebody thinking that it's them, then we'll cut out this part of the talk at least. Okay? You got one? Okay. I'm going to try to get 3 people, so don't feel like you...
Oh, so you want me to go ahead and summarize?
If you would just kind of summarize it in 30 seconds or something like that.
So it's a colleague, someone I don't have much any contact with now. She attempted to apologize for her rage, and instead of an apology, she just gave me a bunch of nonviolence language, which really pissed me off.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, good. That's a great example. Okay. Can I get a couple more people? You willing to work with something? A little free therapy. You got one?
I have a very angry new grad student that I'm finding sometimes I am joining her in being very angry.
Okay. All right, good. Yeah. All right. One more? Got one?
Well, it's kind of like a parishioner who feels that they don't come to the church anymore because they feel as though they're the community, that he's much better than the community that he's in, and he said that all Orthodox churches are just a waste of time, and we just do things for the sake of doing stuff, and then he feels like he has the need to post it on Instagram and on Facebook. And him and his wife, both, the wife comes to church regularly, but the husband doesn't anymore. And the kids are at the church also. But they like to stir up things within the church. And it's the stereotypical, there are people saying this, Father, they should really be worried about it. But really I know it's just them wanting to stir things up. So,
okay.
Basically.
Yeah, thanks for being willing. So Julie's story was about a coworker who would get angry and this funky apology that didn't feel like an apology. Anybody connecting with that scenario as far as your lives go? I got to see some head nods. Now Michael's got a student who is angry and gets him angry sometimes. Who's anybody identifying with that? Yeah, you got one too? How about this scenario here? Yeah. Okay. Would you be willing to do let me just ask you this too. Do you have a basic kind of willingness to maybe see it from this other person's perspective a little bit. And,
Yeah, no, I do see his perspective.
Okay.
Stuff that
Okay.
he's coming from,
yeah, so there's a willingness to maybe
Sure.
get some more insight in it.
Sure.
Okay. Would you mind coming up here and getting on the hot seat?
Thank you, Father.
All right, and I hope we can have some time for questions at the end. All right. So one of the basic things that you can sort of be aware of is when I talk about empathy, I mean naming feelings and needs. That's about it. Okay? You can do it in a more or less subtle way. Okay? So right now in this phase, you are you. Okay? You don't have to try to do anything special. And so do you want to give me a name? I don't know if you want to use the name of this person or not.
John.
John. Just call me John. Okay, I'm John, which may or may not be the name of this person. Okay. So I'm John, and I have just been to this empathy workshop, and so I've learned a whole lot about empathy. So I'm just really going to try to listen to what your perspective is on this. Okay. So let's just start, okay? So I wonder if I went to this empathy workshop and it was so cool, and it just made me think, hey, I'm not sure if I'm really connecting with Father. I'm not really connecting with been some funk. I don't know what's going on, but I'm just curious what it's been like for you to just kind of experience some of the things that I've been doing.
Well, it's been really frustrating because when you portray certain things that are happening in the parish and put it up on the internet, it amplifies an issue that really can be handled on a smaller basis. But once you put it out there on the internet, it's not just our church, but it's all the churches are seeing it, all the people are seeing it, and the whole world is seeing it. So, that presents an issue because where we could take care of a small issue blows up into a big fire. So.
Yeah, so you're really frustrated that this thing that seems like it could be taken care of on a one-to-one basis is now like this sort of big public thing that kind of puts you out there in an uncomfortable way. Yeah. Am I getting at it?
Sure.
Yeah. What else is there that you'd like me to understand about this?
Well, also it affects your family because when they come to church, especially the kids, they have no say or control in what you say, and then there's already a prejudice against them when they come to the church, and their dad's saying all these things, and sometimes they're the beneficiaries of all the negativity that should be coming to you, but you don't even come to church to feel that, right? You're avoiding that situation because you may not be able to tolerate, or you may have to say things that you don't want to say or whatnot. So the kids are really suffering because of it.
Wow. So your heart really goes out to the kids that are affected.
Yes.
My kids that are affected, because I'm not there to have to hear it or deal with it, but they are.
Yes.
And you see them suffering. You see them having to deal with the social stuff that's happening, with people saying what their dad has said or done.
Right. Yeah. I feel it's more causing them to become more closed-minded not closed-minded, but they don't share as much as they want to share because they feel that anything they say is already being scrutinized, so they can't even share their feelings because, they're already being classified as your child, and that negative image is being kind of reflected on them also. So.
Yeah, so you're really wanting them to feel a part of the community and feel like they can be open and share who they are and what their struggles are, but
Yes.
it's like they feel, it's almost like you see them being more closed down and like they're not able to engage in the way you see would be good for them.
Yes, and I feel if there's a place where we could identify, if there's something going on in the parish, and there's things that we can identify to be able to talk about it in a more calm way, because we're not posting it on social media doesn't solve the problem. And to be able to engage on a level where we can do something. If there's problems in the parish, we can handle that. If you're feeling alienated, or if you're feeling separated from the community for whatever reason, or you feel there's something that should be done is not being done in the parish, that's something that we can talk about with the parish council. That's why we have parish council. That's why we have town hall meetings or whatnot. So, and you always have the option of talking with me directly, or even consulting with the bishop or with another priest or whatever. That even I'm open to all suggestions. So just being able to find those avenues of communications is very important.
Yeah. So you're really wanting me to kind of just also come directly to you, and if not to you, that I would deal with it with the means that are given within the church, whether it's the council or the bishop, but that I would talk about things more directly rather than kind of going around. And it seems like you're really wanting some cooperation,
Yes.
and some collaboration, rather than just sort of these shots from the side that kind of go around you and around relationship with you.
And I agree with writing things down, because when you're posting something, you're writing it down, but you're writing it in a way where it's using profanity maybe, and using expletives is not necessarily the best way to approach the body of Christ, so to speak. So
Yeah. So you're seeing the effects on my kids, you're seeing the effects on the community, and you're also seeing how we're not really connecting.
Yes.
And talking things out.
And also the negativity that you have about the church.
Okay.
Whatever opinion you have about the church and the culture and the community, there's certain things that we can change, but maybe not immediately. This may not be a fast change. It may be patience, may be something that we need to think about.
Yeah. So you're also concerned about this negativity that I bring to the overall church, and you're working really hard to make change and make things better, and you'd like some more cooperation with that, and understanding about kind of how change takes some time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like I'm kind of getting what has been so hard for you about all this? There's any other aspects of this that you'd really like me to understand?
I think basically you're getting at one is also, like I said, you not being there, you don't see the response from the other parishioners, and you don't see how it's affecting them, because everyone's working together, and when you complain about it or when you find fault with the things that they do, you're insulting the hard work that they put into it, and it makes them want to pull back. It wants them not to do the work in the church anymore. And the harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. So something that's very challenging in a parish setting to even just find one or two people to do stuff. But when you insult the whole community, no one wants to come forward to do stuff.
Yeah, so it's almost like there's some safety that you're wanting, that my words from the outside kind of threaten the safety of the community, make people more inhibited and not able to just be part of the life of the church in a more free way. They're kind of worried about what I might say about it.
And because, for all intents and purposes, no one knows you don't come to church. So when they see it online, they assume you're coming to church every Sunday and this is your reaction. But you don't see the things on a regular Sunday. You're just guessing what's going on, and you're just at a certain point you have dissatisfaction, but it's not real because you're not there to see what's going on in the church. It's just your frustration being amplified online.
Yeah, there's like no accountability.
Yeah.
And people kind of assume that I'm an integral part of the church, and I'm really not there.
Sure.
Yeah. frustrating. Okay. So let's time out there. So that's phase 1. Okay. So now, if you don't mind, we can switch seats.
All right.
So now he is going to be John, and I'm not really a priest, but I'm okay. I've never been a priest before. It's a lot of weight, responsibility. Okay. So, in this phase, I would ask you, we talk about role plays, but I think this goes beyond just a role play. That there is, some people talk about it as a role being. It's like you get to be John for a minute. Okay. So I would ask you to just sort of speak as John, just like I was a few minutes ago, and just to the best of your ability and your understanding of John, try to sort of respond as he might. Okay. All right. Any questions about that? You're doing great so far. Thank you so much. All right. Okay. Well, I really appreciate you, John. I appreciate you being willing to sort of listen to what this has been like for me. You know, to have my parish almost under attack, and just how frustrating it's been for me to, like, I want to pastor, but I also am struggling to figure out how to do that.
Well, you guys are a bunch of idiots.
Yeah, so it seems like we're just a bunch of idiots. Yeah. So I wonder if you can just share with me what it's like for you to hear some of this stuff from me about my perspective on, you know, like what's going on with your kids and what it's like for the church on the inside when these things are being done.
Well, my kids are under my roof, so, you know, whatever I say is what's going to happen, whether they like it or not. And they should know that the church that they're going to is, they don't know what they're doing. They have no vision. They don't know how to keep accounts. They don't know how to keep track of the money that I give. If I give you a penny every week, I want you to account for it. I want you to make sure that by the next day, you know that penny has been transferred to the account. And I need to know on Sunday that penny, where that penny is. And you have to be able to account for that immediately. Mm-hmm. And I don't care if everybody is volunteering for the positions to account for the church. And I don't care, because I'm paying you my money. And I'm paying your salary, so you have to do what I tell you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're really concerned about kind of our competency and
yes.
our ability to manage accounts and do things mm-hmm. well, and you really are concerned that the money gets spent and there's transparency about how the money's spent, and you'd like it to be done in a really timely way too. You know, what's it like to hear about my concerns for what it's been like for your kids?
I mean, they'll understand when they get older.
Okay.
And I only have to wait till my daughters are 16, so then they can drive on their own to church. I don't have to bring them anymore. So.
Yeah. So you're not too concerned about what's happening to them socially in the church.
No. And I'm just staying away from the church because it's better to stay away than have to see everybody's faces on a Sunday. I'd rather go to Panera and just hang out there.
Yeah, so it's a struggle to see everybody's faces on Sunday. Yeah, I wonder what's going on for you that makes it hard to see people's faces on Sunday.
It's just frustrating that I have to talk to them, and the Orthodox Church is dumb, and they don't have any people there think that they know what's right for me, and they know how I should act and how I should be, but I make my own money, and I know what I need to do in my life, and I'm successful. So I don't need anybody's help, nor do I care about their opinion. So whether it's my family or my kids, I know what's best for them.
So it almost feels like some of your choice and freedom feels threatened by kind of being in the church and feeling like other people have opinions about what you should or shouldn't do.
If I think someone's stupid, then I'm going to tell them they're stupid. This is how I am. That's how I grew up. So
yeah, so there's a real need for honesty. You want to be honest. I feel like you can speak your mind.
yeah, because I'm right. And if I'm right, then everyone should know that I'm right. And I don't want to be involved in the church. I just come because I need to drop my kids off. And I don't really believe in the Orthodox Church. And I just want to come, light my candle, and go home. I don't want to deal with any of this other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so in a sense your heart is really not there. And it's like you're being asked to do something or to agree with something that you don't agree with. And it almost feels like you feel like you got to leave something of yourself outside of the door if you're going to come in and see people.
Yeah, the moment I say something, everyone gets offended. But that's just how I am. And I don't want to go to a place that can't accept me for who I am.
Yeah, so you really want acceptance. If you're going to be somewhere, you really want to feel like you can connect and be accepted.
Yeah, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I say what I want when I want. Whether it offends somebody or not, that's their problem. It's not my problem. The truth is the truth.
Yeah, so some of the times when you've been authentic and you've said things that you've thought or believed maybe hasn't been responded to with gentleness or kindness. So it kind of has made you feel like you have to hold that stuff outside of the church.
But I don't care. You know, I've made my own self successful. I have everything I need, and that's all that really matters.
Yeah. Yeah, so even though you have not found kind of the acceptance and belonging that you might want, that you found a way to kind of make it okay for yourself. That you've found some success and some sense that you matter somewhere else, even if it's not in the church.
Yeah, I don't need the church. I can take care of myself. And if my stupid family wants to come to church every Sunday, let them go be stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like you're stuck here. It's like your family wants to be there, and you're even supporting the church with finances. And so there's some connection there with your family and stuff, but at the same time it's almost like you're not feeling like you're accepted as you are with beliefs or ideas that you come to, and maybe they're not, feels like you're not being received.
Yeah, I'm not going to give my money to the church anymore. I'm just going to, if my wife wants to give something, she can give it, but I'm not.
Yeah. It feels like you've been hurt by the church.
Just a bunch of losers.
Yeah.
It's my third church, so
Okay.
I've been to a couple others.
Okay.
So just losers everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, so it feels like it's really been hard to find a place where you really belong, you really connect, or you're really part of community.
Yeah, because the Orthodox Church is dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe it's the Orthodox Church's fault. But somehow it's just a problem with Orthodox churches.
Yeah, I can just go down the street. I have a Calvary church that I can just go there. No one knows me.
Yeah.
Put my dollar in and go home.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But I believe in the intercessions of the Theotokos. So I come to church
Hmm.
and I light my candle when no one sees, and I leave so I don't have to see anybody.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so there's the intercessions of the Theotokos that just really resonate with you.
But the church is dumb.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to pause there. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And you can go back to being yourself.
All right.
I'm done being a priest. Okay. All right. So I'm John again, and you are yourself again. So I just want to thank you for listening to me and hearing kind of where I'm at. And so I want to just check in with you now. Like, how has it been for you to kind of hear some of that perspective from me?
Well, I think it's important that we realize that, even though we're one body in Christ, there's going to be different opinions. There's going to be different personalities that may not exactly, jive with what we think. But as a church, we have to hear everybody's opinions and collectively decide what's for the benefit of the entire community. But we had to find the right places to speak our mind and say our opinions. And if we really want to affect change, we got to utilize those places and say it to the right people. But that open communication is important. But we should try our best to respect other people's opinions and know that just as we have an opinion, other people also have opinions. So to find that mutual respect is important.
Yeah, so I'm hearing in that too that you are that you see like the connectedness with the church, and how you may have your own opinions about some things, but there's some things that are just part of the church that aren't going to change. And so it's like you would like for there to be some space to be able to dialogue and communicate about things, but at some level, you're not going to change the mind of the church on certain things.
Right. Yeah, definitely, because there's a set of norms that we abide by. There's a certain set of canon, so to speak, of what we do in church and what we can't do in church. And within those norms, we can do a lot, but we had to be willing to work together. And if we feel like our opinion is not being heard, instead of being immediately frustrated or be reactive, we have to try our best to refocus our energy so that we can grow positively and not bring the church down as a whole. If that's what we're looking for, if our vision is not the same, then we have to maybe look into that. But it's important that we try to grow upward, not downward. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you really want to find ways that we could grow together.
And it would not only be beneficial for the church, because you're obviously very intelligent when it comes to financial matters, and you're very much an asset to the church if we find the right place for you to be working. But we have to be okay with not having everything we say happen when we say it the way we want it done. That's not how it works.
Yeah,
Right.
you're really needing some more patience from me.
Yeah, definitely patience.
Yeah.
And just considering, the feelings, especially of your family, but also the feelings of others. It was important because it pulls everybody down. And if there's really an ideal model of what you think the church should be, certainly positive growth and all those things would be part of that. And if you want to affect that change, we have to work together to do that. It's not something that we can do exclusive from each other. So,
Yeah. I guess what I'm noticing coming up for me is that I'm really afraid that maybe I'm not going to belong here. And I've had a couple other communities that I've tried to be part of, and they didn't end great. And so I guess for me, sometimes it's easier to just sort of assume things aren't going to work out, or just resign myself that this isn't the place for me. Maybe my kids can go, I can sneak in and do my intercessions with the Tokos, and maybe nobody will notice me.
yeah.
But I guess I don't have a lot of hope that I can really belong here. I guess that's where I'm struggling.
Yeah, I think if you approach any situation expecting to fail, you're going to fail. So something that openness of mind and heart, the reason that you came to this church to begin with is you felt as though it was different. And I don't think that's changed. I feel as though, sure, maybe there are certain frustrations you have, but at the onset, if you already close your mind to being accepted by a community or the church, you're not going to be accepted, and you begin to build up these walls on your own. And everybody's willing, especially to, more than happy to welcome you into the community. And we've been doing that from the very beginning, even though we know where you came from. We know your past. We know that the church is a place that someone should feel safe, and we want this to be that place for you. But there's certain things that we ask of you because for the betterment of the community and for the building up of the church.
Yeah. I guess I want to ask you, like, if you have any ideas of how we might. It feels like if we're always talking about our opinions about how the church is being run, things don't go very well. And then I'm just not sure that that's really working for us. And I wonder if there's some way that you and I could connect, or that I could connect with some other people in the church, maybe outside of the church. Some place, maybe it's about having coffee or something, where I can feel like you really care about me outside of just sort of my role as someone at church. I don't know. How does that hit you?
I think the church can definitely utilize you, but also I feel there's a level of timidness that kind of needs to come along with it, where we can't force anything down anybody's mouth. We have to be able to. So, as I said, if there's things that you feel can help the church, and you feel that the church is lacking administratively, or maybe the church is lacking financial vision or administrative vision, that's something. Those are things that are important to any organization, and we're expected to utilize our talents and our abilities and the gifts that God gives us to the best of our ability. That's something important that we need to do. And if we're lacking in that department, and you can help, definitely you got to find those places. And I'm more than happy to listen to you. But the barrage of profanities and all these things kind of take away from your message. take away from what your intent might be. So, I mean, where we are now, we have to build those relationships back up. If we burn bridges, those bridges slowly have to be rebuilt in order for us to communicate with everybody as a whole.
Joel, just want to give us all 10 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's a good place to time out. Is there anything else that?
No, I mean, I wish I could show you something.
You can go back and sit down
Thank
if
you.
you want to. Thank you so much. So, what was that like? I want to ask you first. What was that like for you to do that?
I kind of do that, like just on my own, kind of like try to see where he's coming from. And I know where he's coming from, and I know that he's been hurt by different churches and different groups, and even just like part of it's probably also his dissatisfaction comes from. I mean, I feel it's just he gets angry quickly, and I mean, and I understand that. So I mean, there's certain things that, sure, if we can't tell a person that doesn't have patience to have patience. He has to gain that virtue, right? He can't. That's something that grows over time. We hope, or we can help them.
Yeah.
But it's a long-term project. But for someone who wants immediate, reactive results, that's not going to happen. That's not how the church really works.
Yeah.
And even if you try to do that, usually that ends up being a temporary, like a Band-Aid. It's not a long-term fix. So.
Thank you. Yeah, so I want to give you all an opportunity to respond to what you saw. What did you notice? Questions, comments?
More of a comment, because I do see what you're saying in terms of it being a Band-Aid, and I don't have first-hand experience with this gentleman, of course, but I do experience that the validation, the empathy, tends to soften people up. And no, it's not going to be a one-time fix-all. But over time, just people feeling like they're heard, they're being seen as a person, those walls will come down and they will soften.
So I want to respond to that by asking you all, if you were looking at that needs wheel at all while we did that, and just as you noticed us go through this process, what do you feel like John's biggest need is? Acceptance.
Autonomy.
Okay.
Is autonomy?
Autonomy's in there? Yeah. Acceptance, autonomy.
I don't know which category this fits on, but I heard a lot of righteous indignation in him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I know my husband, and perhaps you as well, Father, would share in that. There's a shared sense of like, wow, the church could do things like
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Sense of justice and rightness, fairness,
like
yeah.
connecting on that piece, which was touched on a little bit.
So the follow-up to it would be, instead of responding to the obnoxious behaviors that he's doing, you hold like a precious jewel in your hands his need for acceptance and belonging, or whatever that thing is. And when you're interacting with him, how can I demonstrate acceptance and belonging no matter what he says or does right now? Okay? And so what'll happen is, if that's really the right guess, as you keep speaking into that need for acceptance, that need for belonging, and doing those things, meeting that need, my guess is that these other behaviors should kind of dissipate and disappear, right? So we can argue against and fight against this stuff, right?
It struck me in the third phase that, when John said, maybe I could meet with you or someone outside of church, that the response seemed to be, yeah, the church can really use you because you have a lot of knowledge. And I think that kind of impressed me, like he was taking a big step there, it seemed to me, and even offering to meet outside, and maybe to just have not gone to anything about the church, but just to say, yes, I'm going to come meet with you as a person. Just have a beer or a cup of coffee or whatever it is, and not talk about the church. That maybe would have been something that, but that's just a non-expert outside perspective.
No, that was very insightful. I felt that too.
And if I can just piggyback to what I was saying about the righteous indignation, that his complaint is what he's leading with, right? The church isn't doing it right. His opinions are what's being rejected. He's not being rejected, but he's so blended with his opinions that he feels rejected. And so by joining in him in that righteous indignation over coffee could then lead to other areas of connection. I think that's actually the doorway, because that's what he's leading with, so meeting him where he's at in that frustration and anger, and both feeling frustrated and angry.
I think the challenge sometimes with that, though, I mean, and I appreciate what everybody's saying, but I just know sometimes with these things where things become so public so quickly that you can have that conversation, and then that conversation can then be broadcast to the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the risk involves.
So, I mean, if we had more time to talk about nonviolent communication, what we're doing is we're trying to help give you insight and empathy. So it's really sort of a self-empathy exercise, in a sense, because the other person's not actually here. But we would want to get more into, like, what is this meaning for you, and what are your needs in terms of your pastoral needs and the needs of the church and these kind of things. So these are all part of the picture. We're also we focused on trying to understand John's needs in this scenario, but there's this organic movement between connecting with your own needs, connecting with the other's needs, and expressing your own needs.
I mean, I feel like there shouldn't be a line, but like, where do you sacrifice the one sheep for the 99? At some point where that's kind of like you have to go. Yeah, I mean, I know I have to go after the one sheep, but at some point, I feel like there's and the rest of the parish expects me to protect them too, right?
And I have a parallel question of Father here to complement his comment, because my thinking the same, is when is the right time to face John that his behavior is a projection of what he is on the others, and the reaction of the others is more of what he is and not what the others think about him. So the cognitive bring into reality of what he is should be brought. There is no possible change that you could implement in somebody or make him aware unless he doesn't understand that perhaps part of his behavior is causing this type of reactions.
Well, I think it's at some point it is very appropriate to let John know that. Now, through nonviolent communication, what you want to do is get beyond right and wrong to how are you feeling when he's doing this, and what are you needing? What needs of yours are being threatened? And when you can do that, you get minimum defensiveness from the other person. Yeah. Now, if you come at him as like, all right, why are you trying to destroy our church? You're such a fill in the blank, whatever it is. You're not going to get anywhere, But when you connect with his need for safety, emotional safety, how can I have emotional safety in a place that reminds me of another place where I've been hurt a lot?
Compassion before correction.
Yeah. Well, it's not even exactly correction. It's like, how can I offer my own needs to you in a way that we can connect on that level? Because if you offer your needs and feelings in an authentic way, John also shares those same needs and feelings.
Well, I would say, though, again, if I'm putting words in your mouth, Father, correct me, but as a priest, part of that responsibility is correction. And that's part of what Christ does for us. He's compassionate, and then he corrects us. He loves us too much not to correct us.
But I would argue that it is a correction but it's just not a aggressive one. It's a correction to say, your behavior is impacting me this way. And these are the needs I have, and you are giving that correction.
Right.
It's just not a hostile one where you're saying, knock it off, this is really harmful, and walls go up and they're not hearing you anymore.
Right, so the compassion is his acknowledging John's needs, and the correction is him speaking for his needs in a gentle way.
Now, the danger is, with correction, the danger is you're going to get you could get compliance. And if you get compliance and the other person just hides and stuffs their needs that are trying to get expressed, even though it's in an obnoxious way, you're going to miss the heart of this other person, right? If we get John to do all the right things, stop posting on social media, stop saying what he's saying, and just get him to comply, he's still not going to feel like he belongs in the church and that he's emotionally safe there, right?
And it's going to be hard for, like, I'm more than happy to accept him, but the rest of the church is where, so I'm softening one heart, and I had to soften the other 99, right?
I think
So
maybe the last comment.
theoretically, everybody's needs can get met. We can't necessarily meet everybody's strategies, but we can meet everybody's needs. And when we get down below the strategy level to the need level, we get really, really creative about figuring out many, many different ways that we can meet everybody's needs. It's beautiful. But if we're stuck at the strategies and deciding whose strategy is right or wrong, we're just going to be fighting until the end of time. Okay? So there's one more question?
Yes, you have.
So it struck me that John was not asked where he or how he would feel to be involved, what that would feel like, because, or to be accepted. Because he sounds like he's somebody who has not been accepted, at least in 3 churches, by his own behavior or by someone's perception of him. And I suspect that he's probably not accepted in a lot of other parts of his life. And so I'm just curious why, when you were playing, why you didn't ask that question. Is it a dangerous question to ask? Or?
So can you say again what the question would be?
Is how or where does he feel that he is accepted?
I think it's a totally appropriate question. When I was being father, I was really just trying to focus on what are the feelings and what are the needs behind what is being said right now. That was my main thing. Okay.
Thank you very much. I have a feeling that this could go on for another